I'm glad you brought up the trauma because I was looking through your website and
Hmm.
you've got it on there that you can go through and help people without bringing up the trauma. A lot of people are
Mm.
afraid of their trauma. They know it's there. They know that there's childhood trauma or relationship trauma or generational trauma.
Hmm.
So, how do you tap into that without necessarily taking them through the trenches?
Oh, that's so cool. I'm so glad you asked that question.
Hey there, and welcome back to That Independent Streak. I'm your host, Wendy Campbell, and today we are diving deep into the intuitive side of healing. I've got a powerful guest. She's an amazing human being, full of energy and so much insight. She's the author of the critically acclaimed Healing Through Soul Intelligence, and soon she's going to be a movie star. Kristine Genovese is the creator of Soul Intelligence Method. It's a game-changing approach. It helps you uncover and release all those subconscious blocks that keep you stuck. Think of it kind of like an energy healing meets strategic clarity. There's zero fluff, and there's a whole lot of aha. Now, when we first met, I wasn't sure, but after our first conversation, I went ahead and got the audiobook because that's how I do my books. I listened all the way through and then immediately booked a session. And yes, it changes you. It changes you in ways you didn't expect. And I can't even explain to you what changed, but something's definitely different. In this episode, Kristine breaks down what the Soul Intelligence Method really is, how it works, why it's especially powerful for you, for your business, maybe for the men in your life, anyone who's really ready to cut through the noise, own their truth, and take back their power. Now, if you've ever felt like traditional healing just wasn't cutting it, this one might be for you. So let's get into it.
It's the luckiest day of the year, so I'm feeling really good.
I love that. Is there something I missed? I feel like I missed a memo. Why is today the luckiest day of the year?
Well, because Jupiter, like the biggest planet, like of abundance and everything
Right.
else, is like in direct alignment with the sun.
Oh, then
So
this is going to be fantastic.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Here's the thing is I grew up loving astrology, even though I
Hmm.
was an Italian Catholic little girl, right? You
Oh, ditto. Back at ya.
right? But I'm Sicilian a little bit too, so like there's
Okay,
a lot of superstition, but I grew up with
sure.
astrology and loved all of that. And I think that was kind of like the doorway into my curiosity about all the other things. So,
Hmm.
yeah, let's dive in, talk more about this alignment and how it plays out.
Okay, I will do my best. I don't want to use the wrong language. And
We won't
describe
judge
it
here.
because
This is a
I'm
friendly
not, well, I'm just saying,
conversation.
I'm not an, well, give me one second. I'm not an astrologer, but I do pay attention.
Hmm.
And I just want to make sure that I have it, that I say it right. Kazemi. That's a crazy word,
Kazemi.
isn't it? Yeah, it's Jupiter Kazemi. Okay, anyway, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
Okay, cool.
I think I think it's important to look at all the things. Like over the last year or so, I've gotten into maybe the last 2 years into like the human design and expanding on astrology and really tying everything together and really trying to understand it. Um, we can get into that a little bit later too, but I'm
Sweet.
starting to think that maybe we're in a simulation and that's just our algorithm, and I just never understood that before.
I think you're right. I think there is something to that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure,
Awesome.
for sure. So, I'm really
Okay,
actually
cool.
super excited to talk to you. I've been looking through a lot of your things, and it's obviously a topic that I'm kind of interested in. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to kind of learn more about themselves and express themselves more through soul intelligence. And so, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind. I know you have a history in corporate growth and
Mhm.
a strong corporate background, but how did you kind of come into the soul intelligence? How did you start working within it? And do you mind telling us your story?
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going.
We're on. We're going. Let's just go.
Okay, so how I got into soul intelligence. Well, my origin story is probably not unfamiliar. Remember 2020?
Oh,
March March 12th of 2020 is a date that's forever burned in my memory. But that was the day that I was on my last corporate turnaround. And I thought, things were going great. I just gotten a performance bonus. We're year one of a planned 3-year turnaround. We're tracking, everything's going in the right direction. And I got a call from the head of HR letting me know my services were no longer needed. I was like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? I go, we're doing great. And he said, "Yeah, the CEO wants to go in another direction." I'm like, "What? Backwards? What are you talking
Yeah.
about?" So I texted my boss at the time, the COO, and I said, I just got fired." He goes, "Me too." I'm like, "What?" So basically, give you the physical story first, and then I'll tell you the spiritual
Yeah.
side. What happened was the COO and I had prepared the board deck.
Hmm.
It was March 12th was a Thursday. Monday, we were to have the board meeting. And I had been asking for more people, right? And I said, look, we need more salespeople to convert the number of leads that we're planning on for the first quarter.
Hmm.
And so the board deck showed, had we hired the people I had been asking for, not only would we have met the Q1 objective, we would have exceeded it. But the CEO kept telling us, no, you can't hire anybody else. We want to hold the line on expenses. So what he did is he eliminated me and the COO and went into the boardroom and said, we didn't hire enough people to save himself, and went on a hiring spree.
Hmm.
I was like, wow. You know? I'm
Ballsy,
like,
but go on.
like because I mean, I had always been an overachiever, right? That kind of came from childhood, and so we'll lead into the story, but I had never been fired. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm in my early 50s, out of a job, the height of COVID, right? No one's hiring. I'm in full on panic mode. I happen to be at a biopsy appointment with my husband at the time. And that's when I got the call. I mean, just talk about the whole range of
Mhm.
craziness.
And the
So,
world's shutting down, so never mind little details.
yeah, right? Okay. So, the good news for me was because of the way, everything transpired, I was given a little bit of an exit package, which was very nice. So I was given some time. And
Hmm.
not that I didn't go through the panic phone calls of, oh my God, are you looking? Are you hiring? What's going on? Right. But once I got through sort of the, okay, wait, pause. I did a lot of prayer. I did a lot of manifestation. I did a lot of meditation. Um, and I remember having this really powerful meditation in the time that I was given where I just started bawling. And I knew I couldn't go back into corporate America, that it was time for me to step into what I'm supposed to be doing, right? I
Hmm.
think Brandon Bouchard described it as, people get used to seeing you in your zone of excellence, which I was in for years, right? I'm good at it. People identify me with it. I'm this corporate badass, this adrenal junkie, just going crazy. Um, and what I was supposed to do is step into my zone of genius, which is soul intelligence. And
Hmm.
so I had a really good friend say to me, look, you've been given the time to figure out what is it you really want to do.
Hmm.
And so when I slowed down and I went within and I allowed myself the time and space, the method came through. So it was really a gift, I think. It almost feels like a remembering. Like I knew how to use a book of charts and a pendulum because that's part of my method.
Hmm.
Um, but then I'm like, okay, so how do you go from corporate to spiritual without people thinking you've lost your mind, right?
A little of
So
that.
yeah, so I was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to bridge the two worlds between the business and the spiritual, and how do you do that? And so I'm kind of one foot in, one foot out. So what I did is I developed a corporate leadership program,
Hmm.
and I went through my network and I started to help senior leaders move into executive leadership, right? And middle managers move into senior leadership. And I did some executive coaching. And in every one of those programs, like especially in the group program, I do a one-on-one in the beginning where we talk about what intrinsically motivates you.
Hmm.
And I used a tool that I still use today, actually. It's called the Game Changing Index, and it measures basically what lights you up from the inside out, just not from anything other than where does your energy naturally want to go. Super
Hmm.
cool tool. Anyway, second one was midpoint, kind of checking in, like how are the things that I've been teaching you going, how you applying it to your teams, what differences you're making, how are we tracking against your goals. And then the third one was, a couple weeks before the program would end, and they'd gotten to know me by now, and I'd been kind of seeding with, spiritual stuff along the way. And I said to them, hey, you got one more one-on-one with me. Would you like a traditional coaching session? Or would you like to take a risk walk with me and try a soul intelligence session and get to the root cause of the problems that you're having at work, at home, and showing up in all aspects of your life? And every single person took me up on the soul intelligence session. And it was kind of game on from there.
Do you think they do
So,
that because everybody, I mean, you can take a business course and you can learn the business. You can
mhm.
take, a data course and learn how to read metrics. You can do all these things. But to really like dive into who you are, do you think that we're at a point where people are just craving that information and that understanding now more than they were before?
Oh, I would think so, right? We went through the great resignation, right?
Mm.
Shortly after COVID, where people were like, forget it. I can't do this if it's not in alignment with my purpose and who I am, right?
Right.
We saw that, like it showed up in all the facts and figures. But I also think, where I've focused is bridging, this perceived gap between science and spirituality.
Hmm.
My method is founded in science and quantum physics and bioenergetics. So I don't come across as like a very woo-woo type
Right.
person, right? I'm pretty grounded business
Right.
individual. And so when I would talk to CEOs and talk and pitch them, this program, I'm like, can you imagine having an entire team full of people who are lit up from the inside out, who are in full alignment with your mission, vision, values, and purpose and their own? Can you
Hmm.
imagine what you could do with people inspired and motivated like that? So I think everybody wants that, but they're like, how do you attain that? How do
Right.
you get there?
Right. And even today, I think quantum physics, I think there's definitely a large group of people who are very strongly interested in it. You've got like the whole Joe Dispenza crowd, and you've got everyone who's kind of coming to this concept that maybe there's this way to kind of hack into your brain and your body and your energy and use it. And then you've
Hmm.
got this other crowd that still thinks it's woo woo, still thinks that there's not enough data, still doesn't understand it. And I understand that there's data and science behind it, but how do you jump over that mental block of well, do we know? Do we really know? A lot of people I think still struggle with it.
Yeah, I would agree with you, right? Well, so I've been operating in a really cool container. I was drawn to, as part of my executive coaching, I wound up working with the CEO of a nutraceutical company.
Hmm.
So a company that helps people heal naturally, right? Instead of pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, natural way of healing. And they sell those incredible formulations to healthcare providers. So I started working in the field of functional medicine
Hmm.
and integrated healthcare because they're already open to alternative ways of healing. And they understand that there's always a root cause to whatever is showing up in the physical body, right? So when we talk about, I think we forget, if we think about elementary school, we're all protons, neutrons, electrons, remember, we're,
Right? Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
vibrating in this electromagnetic field. Yeah. But I think we forget it because we're physical, we're corporal.
Hmm.
The only way I'm seeing you through Zoom right now or you're hearing me is an energy transfer. There's
Hmm.
no other way to explain it. And I think we forget that because it's invisible, right? The same thing as you hear music, it comes in as a vibration. Even Einstein said that the future of healing was vibration and frequency. We're using vibration and frequency right now to destroy cancer cells in medicine rather than the chemo.
Hmm.
Like it's really starting, people are really starting to go, whoa, right? So when you get to the underlying root cause of what's going on physically in the body, it is always energy. Okay? And emotion is supposed to be energy in motion.
Hmm.
When energy pools in the body, when it starts to cause a block, that's when things go wrong. That's when you get dis-ease or dysfunction or a dissonance in your frequency and you go to the doctor. So what I do is focus on the root cause of all physical manifestations of illness,
Hmm.
right? And I work on the mental and emotional level. And what we're finding is it's amazing. The Heart Math Institute has done some research about how big your actual electromagnetic field around your heart is compared to your brain. So the electromagnetic field around your heart is 6 feet wide. Remember, we had to say 6 feet apart? Kind of weird, huh?
Strange how that
All
ties
right.
in.
Hmm.
Got
But
questions.
around your brain, it's 2 foot wide. So it's three times as great. Yet all my life in corporate, it was don't show your emotions. It was like stuff all that stuff down. You can't, no, there's no crying in baseball, like Tom
Hmm.
Hanks said in A League of Their Own, right? You couldn't do it. Weren't allowed. And that is so destructive because when we push that emotion, that energy's got to go somewhere. And so a lot of times we stuff it and it shows up in the physical body.
Hmm.
And so with health functional medicine doctors, right, they're getting to the root cause. So they're helping to treat what's going on in the physical body, but they can't always treat what's going on mentally and emotionally that's causing it in the first place.
And
And
they don't
that's where
even
I come
ask.
in. Right. A lot of traditional medicine doctors do not. A lot of allopathic doctors do not. And that's the one thing I really love about being in this field of functional medicine. They're very much open to, hey, what's going on at home? What's going on at work? What's going on with your kids? What's
Hmm.
your relationship like? Because when you think about the root causes, like of what causes the dis-ease or the dysfunction in the body, your body is basically the barometer to your subconscious mind. Okay, so when we think about, I'm starting to talk about the brain in 2 foot wide field, right? We spend all of our time like thinking, strategizing, calculating, and we don't spend enough time in our hearts, right?
Right, right.
So we talk about heart-centered leadership, but it's like, oh, we're way up here.
Well, and most people can't, most people have and I do this too, where I
Yeah.
get so into my head that the last thing I want to talk about is emotion. Like I'll logic my way out of it so I don't have to talk about the thing. Which is,
That's a great point.
it
Yeah.
it happens. But also,
Yeah.
Gen Xers especially, I think, grew up in that world where you don't talk about your feelings. Nobody wants to hear about your feelings and just figure it out. So,
I would agree with that.
yeah.
But when you also think about like the subconscious mind, it is running the show 90% of the time. That
Mhm.
blows me away.
Mhm.
That all the stuff we just talked about, the figuring, the strategizing, the calculating, that's 5% of the mind. 95% of the time it's the subconscious mind, and that's where all those emotions go. That's where all those thoughts go. That's where all the self-limiting beliefs start to loop, right?
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
causes you to see your world in a very different light. And it's how do you get into those things? How do you even know what they are that are affecting your life? And so that's really where my method comes in.
Well, and
It's,
that takes me back to a question to kind of roll back just a little bit. When you were
oh,
developing
sure.
this and thinking about all of this, um, it's sitting down to manifest it and create it. From I was praying about it, and then I was I was meditating.
Hmm.
Sometimes, and a lot of people I hear this from, not just
Hmm.
me, sometimes sitting down to meditate, you don't always get those downloads. You don't always get those, like, there's so much of a block. There's so much going on that letting go enough to hear them. How did you hear it and how did it come to you? Like, did it just come to you fluidly or how did you open yourself up to it?
Well, I mean, obviously, I was a type A crazy corporate person, right? I'm like this plane hopping adrenal junkie, crazy lunatic that was going, flying across the country, three
Uh-huh.
out of 4 weeks a month. So how do you slow down enough to go and hear the message? And I totally appreciate that and get that. Um, how I did it was really like I said, it almost felt like I was remembering something. Now, I
Mhm.
don't know if you believe in past lives or other dimensions or incarnations or whatever, but that's the best way I can describe it is like, oh yeah. I mean, I learned how to use a book of charts and a pendulum from like a completely different method. So I had sort of a methodology
Mhm.
in my mind, and I knew that if I could get in touch with my higher self, the best version of me,
Mhm.
connected to the divine of all that is, or a power greater than me, then I would be able to discern information. And I know, everybody's got different intuitive senses. Like some people are clairvoyant, they see things. Some people are clairaudient, they hear
Mhm.
things. For me, I'm clairsentient. So the first thing is I feel it. Like you get
Okay.
chills, like
Mhm.
something's true or it's right.
Mhm.
So that's me. And so when I knew I needed to put this system together, I started to get the idea of the charts and what I needed to put on each chart. So I've got charts about physical wellness, the physical body. I've got negative energies, emotions, um, self-limiting beliefs, archetypes, right? All the
Mhm.
different patterns that we hold. A work chart, a career work chart, like maybe it's a block to marketing, maybe it's a block to entrepreneurship, maybe it's legal, like
Mhm.
all of that stuff. Because everybody and everything is energy. That is the basic tenet. And once energy is created, it can't be destroyed. It has to go somewhere. You have to transmute it into something else or move that energy out of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the idea of the charts really came through this inspired message. But the only way that happens is if you can get quiet. So I spent a lot of time kind of resetting my body to get into the natural rhythm of the earth, and like going to the beach. It's like the Om. I'm fortunate
Mm-hmm.
enough that I live a couple miles from the beach. And so I'm able to kind of decompress and kind of get back into that natural rhythm. And then I would just write. And it was almost like inspired instruction, I
Mm-hmm.
guess,
Mm-hmm.
is the best way to put it. But the key to it is eliminating the distractions, right? Getting quiet enough to hear it. Um, Asking and allowing things to come through. Because to me, prayer is, you know, um, placing your request, and meditation is listening for the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they really go hand in hand.
That's, I mean, it's,
It's almost like writing a book, right? I mean, it's kind of the same
mm-hmm.
process, it kind of comes through you.
Mm-hmm.
I describe different levels of consciousness. So, like, the first one is sort of the, he said, she said, victim, villain, hero, right? The story. We get caught up
Mm-hmm.
in the story. That's kind of the first level of consciousness. Then the second one is like, um, oh, why is this happening? What could I learn from this? It's more like life is happening for me, not to me, like the
Mm-hmm.
first one, right? And it's kind of like life university. Then the next level is life is happening through me. And that's when I'm doing my work. I feel I'm divinely connected. I'm asking for, energetic protection so that whatever we shift goes back to the divine as opposed to on anyone or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel that it comes through. So when I was writing my book, it was a similar process. The words were coming through me. Some were mine, some were divine, right? And then the last one is life is happening as me. And that's those few moments where you kind of lose yourself in the waves of the ocean, or you lose yourself on the top of a mountain to feeling like you're one with all.
Mm-hmm.
But most of us can't stay up there in the Buddha land very long, right? We drop back down immediately as soon as we go out into traffic, like, dang
Right.
it, what did that guy do that to me? So that's the human factor, right? You can't stay all
Definitely.
lofty. But I do my best to stay between life is happening for me and life is happening through me. And I think if you can stay in those states,
Mm-hmm.
life tends to go a little bit more smoothly.
You've mentioned a couple of times using the pendulum and charts.
Mm. Hmm.
How does that process work? Are you using like walk me through that?
Want to have a session? You want to go?
Oh, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, well, sure.
I don't know if you want all your stuff out there with everybody, but so this is literally my book.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I have a book of charts and a pendulum. So what I do is I set up what I call a sacred space, which essentially is just asking, for divine protection for me and for
Mm-hmm.
whomever I'm working with. And I do it very similarly, like in a Zoom session, like we are now. And people are like, how can you do that? I'm like, well, because it's energy. And as long as I'm tapped in to you and to the divine, I know that whatever's necessary is going to come up and I can shift it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the first chart is like a table of contents. So I start on the first chart with the pendulum and then I see where it takes me. And sometimes it's very focused. Like if I know someone's going through a really difficult time in their relationship and that's what they want to focus on and work on, I'll shift things for them. I'll shift things, for the situation,
Mm-hmm.
whatever is supposed to come up that needs to move. Um, but a lot of times it's what's for this person's best and highest good. Sometimes it's very focused on something physical. I worked with a nurse once who had been out of work for over a year with shingles, and it was just devastating,
Mm.
right? She couldn't do anything. Um, and that took a number of sessions to get to the root cause of what was causing it. Um, it was, really all she had a lot of childhood trauma that literally manifested and got exacerbated going through a divorce, right? It just kind of reached a crescendo. And so then she was crippled and couldn't do anything. But
Right.
once we figured out what that root cause was, what was happening, we were able to shift that and she was able to go back to work and he has a great partner now and just, but it had to help her get through that.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with a medical doctor, okay? And she says to me, So I haven't been able to walk. I'm like, that sounds pretty serious. How long? She's like, 2 months. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, I can't put any weight on my foot. I go, you're a doctor. What's going on? She goes, I don't know. That's why I'm coming to you. And so I'm laughing. I'm like, okay. So I do a session with her and I'm focused on her foot. And I said to her, I go, what's with all of these men that are not supporting you, that are not listening to you? She goes, oh my gosh. She goes, I have been in a battle with a contractor who didn't do the work on my house properly, refused to fix it. I have an attorney. My attorney's not moving it forward, and I'm really frustrated. I said, well, obviously, because you can't take a step forward. That's what's wrong with your foot. So I
Hmm.
worked on shifting all of that energy up and out. Literally the next day, she called me and she's like, "Oh my God, I literally was crawling to the bathroom. I couldn't walk. I could not put anything on my foot." She goes, "I walked to my office today. I had no problems." She's like, "You helped me." And I go, "Well, did you also take action and call your attorney?" "Oh, yes, I did." So it's
Good for her.
like, called her power back and she started to take control of the situation. But like I said, it's really um every situation's different. I mentioned like
Hmm.
a relationship. I was working with another MD and her husband, um, was helping her with her business on the finance side of things. And they had a disagreement about how they should move forward. And, he really wanted her to have a second location. She was really struggling. She didn't want to expand quickly. And she's like, this is really affecting my marriage. So I said, okay, I'll do a session for you. So I sat down, I did a session for her. We cleared all the stuff. She texts me the next morning. She's like, oh my God, my husband has never treated me as well as he treated me last night. What did you do? You cleared me. How did that affect him?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Like, how'd you make that happen? I like this game.
And I was like, well, when we shifted your energy, he feels differently around you. He doesn't know what shifted, but it's caused him to react differently. You feel different.
Hmm.
So you released what was that friction. And so then you were able to have a discussion and come to an agreement on what is best for both of you to move forward. She was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. But I think we think it's all us, right?
Well, we
But if
are
you
the heroes of our own story. So I think like
true,
everything is
true,
according to you anyway. So yeah.
true. Yeah, but I think if you think about your if you think about you being this energy field, right?
Hmm.
You're coming in contact with other energy fields, let alone when you're intimate with someone. Then you're exchanging energy, right? Whether you're
Hmm.
kissing or anything else. Even being in close proximity with someone, you can pick up on their stuff. Sometimes it's not even yours. And that's actually how I knew I had a gift a long time ago. I remember telling my mom, I don't like how I feel around my dad. I don't feel good. I'm upset. I feel like I physically change. And what I realized later, as a grown up,
Hmm.
what I was doing was picking up on all of his self-loathing and self-hatred and just anger and so I was like, ugh,
Hmm.
and I never realized what that was. And so I think that's something to keep in mind too. Like we have to really protect our energy and be conscious that we are these energetic beings, whether
Right.
we're operating in a corporate office or whether we're bebopping down the street. But everybody can feel energy. You walk into that cocktail party and you're just like, ugh, I don't want to be in here. Or you walk into like this incredible fun room and you're like, yes, you're
Hmm.
energized, or you're part of a concert and you're just like in it. We feel the energy. I just don't think we recognize it.
Do you believe that energy exists and then once it exists, it's out there forever? That I get.
Hmm.
Good energy and negative energy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
positive and negative. Do
Hmm.
you think that some people are more attuned to vibrating to and catching negative energy? That like I think in my mind, I believe that, if you push positive energy constantly, and it's not to be Pollyanna like, but like you're
Hmm.
constantly trying to stay in that headspace versus When you go and you have a conversation with a coworker or a friend or, a relative, and they're constantly negative. So it's, I hate this. I can't stand this. Oh my, this traffic, this job, these people, the government, like pick your poison, but they all feel like
Mhm.
poison. And then you
Yes.
leave the conversation feeling really negative. Do you think that there are some people who I don't want to say attract it, but just because they are empathic and they do feel it, they end up attaching to more of that negativity, even though they don't want it.
Oh, well, yeah. You may have heard a tale as old as time, the narcissist and the empath. Have you ever
Oh,
heard of that one?
love that.
I think I have
Few
a
times,
PhD.
actually.
Exactly. I think I have a PhD in
Yeah,
narcissism. I
yeah.
can tell you. Yes, of course, right? Um, but you also have to be aware of it too. And
Mm,
choices, right? So I would lump that in the category of toxicity, right? When we talk about what causes dis-ease in the body, toxicity is at the top next to
mhm.
stress. Okay, like as key things that make our bodies go wrong, and they tend to go hand in hand. But
Right.
being around toxic people, like that phone rings and you look and you see that person's name and you're like, oh, I don't want to pick it up,
It's never
right?
happened.
That's the energy vampire, right? And you're just like, I am not ready for this conversation. I don't want to speak to that person. Not naming names.
Mm.
But yeah, I know you're like, yeah, maybe
It's weird how
once.
all of a sudden I can't talk. It's so strange.
So yeah, that's a big part of it. And stress,
Mm,
that causes the dysfunction in our body.
mhm,
Lack of movement today is because we're not moving the energy out too. Like sitting is the new smoking,
mm.
basically.
Yeah.
So those three things. And then, certainly there is a little bit of, well, obviously nutrition. What are you putting into the physical body,
Mhm,
right? It's
mhm,
kind of like a computer, garbage in, garbage out. So you do
mm,
have to pay attention, and our food
mhm.
supply is a little challenging at the moment. But
Been
anyway,
living
those are
the
things.
AIP dream for the last 4 or 5 months, so
There you go.
I know all about this one. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's true. Like if you put junk in,
Hmm.
you're gonna
Yep,
get that back.
absolutely. So the four things I just mentioned out of the
Hmm.
five are within our control. They're all lifestyle related.
Hmm.
Okay, the last thing we can't control is the genetic component. And there is a portion of disease that comes through our family line or through our genetics, give us predisposure, but it's the smallest. It's about 5%. The rest of that stuff I just mentioned is within our control. So
Nice.
that's a good thing. So when
That
we
is a
start
good thing.
talking about toxic people, you can eliminate that. I'm also super conscious of what do I watch? What do I listen to?
Hmm.
What do I read?
Hmm.
Because all of that, right? All of that stuff goes into that subconscious mind and starts to churn. So you do have to really be, careful and conscious about those choices because it will affect you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the trauma because I was looking through your website and
Hmm.
you've got it on there that you can go through and help people without bringing up the trauma. A lot of people are
Mm.
afraid of their trauma. They know it's there. They know that there's childhood trauma or relationship trauma or generational trauma.
Hmm.
So how do you tap into that without necessarily taking them through the trenches?
Oh, that's so cool. I'm so glad you asked that question. Um, I've got quite the trauma. I've lived through a lot. I mentioned,
We're soul
yeah,
sisters, I
right?
think.
Hello. So I mentioned some of it in my book, Healing Through
Hmm.
Soul Intelligence, some of my own personal stories, and I um, do share a lot of it. But it doesn't feel good for people to go through. So I used to just talk about the difference between coaching and counseling, for
Mm.
example,
Hmm.
right? You go to therapy, and what you have to do in order to move that energy up and out of the body is to be put in a situation where you go back through it, right? You relive the trauma. You have to cry it out, scream it out, smash something, whatever that is to get it
Hmm.
up and out. Because it's in the body, it's held in the cells. If we're all energy, it's stuck somewhere in your
Right.
physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, or all of it. So, and so that's the difference. Coaching is taking you where you are today to where you want to go. So,
Hmm.
when I was working with people, especially in a coaching type scenario, um, we would set forth okay, where you are today, where you want to go, what problems are we going to solve together, how are we going to get you there, how are we going to get you the transformation you're looking for. What I would find is that sometimes there were things that led them to get in that place in the first place that they don't necessarily want to relive. So that's where the soul intelligence method comes in. So using the book of charts and the pendulum, I'm going to know what those situations are, like what's
Hmm.
come up for them or what's coming up for them. And I can name people, places, timelines, when it happened, who caused the hurt or harm, and we move the energy up and out through the charts. So they don't have to relive the situation, but they're going to hear it. So it's going to come from the subconscious to the conscious so it can be cleared. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying somebody might not cry, right? It may come up and you might have to release a little bit. But it's not like I've got to go back and put myself in that situation and see it and feel it, and you know what I mean?
Right.
It's more of I'm bringing it up from the subconscious to the conscious to be
Like an
cleared.
acknowledgement. You're bringing up the acknowledgement to
Absolute,
move
and
it.
then it can be released. And that's essentially how I do it. Um, I was working with someone and it's just amazing because like I don't know these people necessarily that come to me, right?
Right.
And so I was working with someone that was pretty high up in a large organization, and I was like, "Wow, you've got like all of this trauma around a relationship with a religious figure, and it's showing up here, it's showing up at home, it's showing up at work, and I'm clearing all this stuff." And then she said, "Well, yeah, my ex-husband was a minister," and I was like, "Ugh!" Like I had no idea. I'm like a religious figure. Like, how am I going to know that,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
I'm like, and she's like, that makes complete sense to me. So I may not even understand what's going on at the time until someone provides the context. It's not
Hmm.
necessary for the healing, but it just helps to explain it, right? And it helps to
Hmm.
explain what's going on. People are like, well, how did you know I got divorced 7 years ago? I go, well, that's what's coming through me. I didn't know you. I wouldn't know that. And
Right.
if people believe in past lives, I can look at, sometimes things will come up. So whether you believe in past lives or you just believe that, things come down your family line or it's a generational thing that I'm clearing, those are all possibilities. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter on what the belief system is, as long as you're open and willing to have it shift regardless of what it is, right?
Right.
And that's why I always tell people, like, well, are you religious? Or are you like, what's your faith? And I like you. I was raised Italian Catholic. I have a last name Genovese. I
Hmm.
come by spiritual gangster, honestly. Okay.
Truth in advertising.
I know, right? Everyone's like, that Genovese? I go,
Mm,
yeah, that Genovese. Anyway,
bless you, child.
originally from New York City. Yes. So, but yeah, there's lots of trauma and it could come through that. Like there could be, something where, I was working with one woman and she's like, I kept seeing like, gosh, all of the men in your life, like your dad, your father, I'm sorry, your grandfather, your father's father, have all had this like inability to produce and to generate wealth. And it's always been a struggle and just having enough and not getting, she's like, oh my God. And I go, that's where it's coming from. So
Hmm.
when I could figure out when it started, I can go back and, release that and heal that so that the rest of the family line doesn't have to go through that. Because we do make these commitments and we don't realize it. And I really believe we all choose the
Hmm.
journey we're going to go on. In
Right.
spite of all the crazy trauma that I've lived through, I go, really? I said yes to this?
I
But,
know. Drinking or
what was
something. I
I
don't know what
thinking? I
happened.
was so drunk on the Kool-Aid on the other side, right? Like, this cannot be for real. Yeah. But like I think when you look at your life like that, okay, and what have I learned and what have I expressed? I know doing the work that I'm doing in the world, I had to go through a lot of the stuff in order to be able to help the people that I work with, right? The
Hmm.
clients that I'm treating. So I think you have to have a perspective of what it takes to actually heal things in order to be a healer in and of
Hmm.
itself.
I
Yeah.
think from what I'm hearing, you're taking a lot of intuition and channeling and understanding, and whether you call it, past lives, quantum jumping, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
it does sound like you're pulling from different elements. Do you, so some people don't have a clear picture of where they want to go. right?
Mhm.
Whether it's
Mhm.
business or it's personal or it's relationship, whatever it is. So they struggle with defining, okay, well, if I fix this, then what is that next step and what is the path? Do you help people find that path as well to kind of guide them into their next steps so that they can live their highest self? Or do you kind of let them kind of develop that as they go?
Well, that's a great question. I've worked with people doing both things, right? I work with people who are going through a transition a lot, right?
Hmm.
Typically that's when someone reaches out. Okay, I can't take it. I've tried all
I'm
the
out.
things.
Yeah.
You know,
Help.
yeah, help me out. But yeah, I've worked with people on figuring out, okay, what's been holding you back? What's not allowed you to move forward? I've worked with actually a number of women who were, stay-at-home moms, and then once they're empty nesters, they're like lost. Like, what do I do now? And so it's getting back to the things that lit them up initially. And I
Hmm.
can look at, I mentioned archetypes or patterns, right? Things that support us when they're light and make our lives a little more difficult when they're in shadow or experiencing the darker aspects of an archetype. And you know, um, as a matter of fact, I was just talking with this person today, um, just helping her navigate what lights me up, what do I love to do, and what do I want to help other people do.
Hmm.
And there's been, so I'm able to clear the stuff, that was holding her back from ever pursuing what she wanted to do, and then to give her guidance going forward about what she could do.
Hmm.
So we looked at things she loved to do, from travel to, writing and all of these things. And so she's now serving as like a tour guide and travel agent and, helping people enjoy their vacations and just kind of living sort of a nomadic life that she had never thought she could live before.
Hmm.
So I think each person is different.
Oh, definitely.
I worked with a different coach. Like I've worked with a coach who was attracting all the wrong clients.
Hmm.
And she was like, why do I have all these people in my world that I don't want to work with? And I was like, let's go back to the boundary issue you may not have had once upon a time. So it wound up being something as a kid,
Uh-huh.
like not getting picked to be on a team showed up in her business. So she wanted to let everybody in, whether they were right for her or not, because she didn't want them to
I
feel
mean, that's
left out.
sweet, but yeah.
Right. So we had to like, whoa, 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 let's undo this. And it was really funny because I haven't worked with her in a number of years and we reconnected recently and I said to her, you made the book. She goes, I did. And I said, yeah, you didn't see your story? She goes, no, I haven't read the whole thing yet. And I said, okay, well, you're in there. And I shared her story. She goes, oh my God, you're right. I go, well, how many clients that you don't want to work with have shown up in your programs? And she's like, none. Like she was like, oh
Magic.
my God, it worked. It was just really funny. But
That's awesome. I actually have two questions that came out of that. So we were
oh,
talking
cool.
about past lives and looking at different life experiences. Do
Hmm.
people in your experience of being able to like work with so many people, are people having the same experiences in each life? Are they attuned? Like if I'm a baker in one life, am
Hmm.
I a cook in the next? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are people kind of like, are they following the same trajectory, or are they? So I kind of balance in the quantum thing, and everything you do and every decision you make, there's another lifestyle or another lifetime that you live that
Mm.
answers that. So, you're a cop in this life, you're a bank robber in the next. You know what I mean? Like, so
There
are
is,
you sensing that? Are you feeling that? Like, are people kind of fluid in their experiences?
well, there are hermetic laws, right? We know as above, so below. We know
Hmm.
one that is, karma.
Hmm.
What you put
Hmm.
out comes back to you.
Right.
So, yes, we switch roles. Yes, we have different lifetimes. And the answer is yes. Sometimes we choose to experience something similar, and sometimes we choose to experience something different.
Hmm.
Right? And I think it really is all about, this is the land of duality, right? The earth plane. That's why we have light and dark. That's why we have, good and bad, right? It's set up to be this dual place so that we can learn. And it's said to be one of the places where we accelerate the fastest. So even though we might feel like a hot mess, we're actually, we decided to take the hard
How
road,
did you
okay?
know? Yeah. Right. Right.
So I do think like there's different the answer to your question is all depends on the individual. Will
Okay.
I see a repeating pattern sometimes? Yes. Right? Will I see someone who has, served in a leadership role, continuing to stay in a leadership role? Yes. But I would have also seen someone who's taken a leadership role that then chooses to follow, because they need to learn what does that mean.
Hmm.
So it really depends on each person's life path, life plan, and expression.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of getting to the Akashic records and, where all the lives are stored and all the tales are. And it's really depending on what you want to do,
Interesting.
and what you want to learn,
I
really.
only recently came across the Akashic Records, maybe a year or two ago. I read a book that was a
Mm,
novel, and then it sounded familiar, and so I started searching some other things, and then came across the whole concept of the Akashic Records. Um,
mm.
but I think it's very. I haven't figured out how to tap into it to like balance in it, but I think it's an interesting space to go into because it does open up. You are in control of everything that you do, so you do have the power and the resonance to go in and make those changes, which is interesting.
It is so interesting, right? When we really think about, it's all about magnetizing and attracting. And what are you magnetizing and attracting? You may have, recall a book called The Secret,
Hmm.
right? Okay.
Hmm.
And The Secret was written 20 some years ago
Yeah, I
or
think that's
so.
when I read it about 20 something years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So in The Secret, the whole idea was, focusing on what you want to manifest.
Hmm.
What The Secret didn't bring up, okay, even though it was like set the intention, right? That's the electric part of the electromagnetic field, right? You have to have a thought, an idea, an inspiration, a something, right?
Hmm.
But that's just the spark. What magnetizes things to you, what brings things to you, brings them into form, collapses the particle wave, is the emotion. That is the magnification. So where it falls apart is if what you want, you don't feel it, see it, embody it,
Hmm.
and put yourself in that vibration of the person that's already, flying in the private jet, doing the shows, and feel that regularly, consistently, it doesn't come into form.
Hmm.
And so it's about shifting your vibration to that which you really want to be in your highest self, the best version of you, whatever that looks like, and doing it consistently. Because the good thing about the subconscious is it doesn't know time, and it doesn't know reality from, fantasy.
Hmm.
And so when you can spend more time in that vibration and in focusing on what you want to manifest, it actually comes into form and collapses the particle wave much quicker and brings it from the quantum into the physical. But everything starts internally. Now, I mentioned The Secret. What's behind me is the movie poster. I'm actually in a movie called The Pillars of Power,
Hmm.
which is actually a really kind of The Secret Part Two is the best way for me to put it. A lot of the original cast from The Secret movie, like Dr. Joe Vitale and Marie Diamond and John
Hmm.
Assaraf, like all these cool people are
Hmm.
in it, along with today's transformational specialists like myself, and that's going to come out later in the year, which is really
Oh, that's
exciting.
so cool. We'll have to talk again before that comes out. That's
I know.
that's
I was
awesome.
like,
Congratulations. I think that's
thank
fun.
you so much. But so we were talking like quantum and The Secret and stuff. I was like, definitely have to mention that, that's what that's all about. It's about living your best life.
Hmm.
And the pillars of power being those key things that we're all focused on, health, wealth, relationship, connection. And I really believe, life is all about relationships.
Agreed.
Um, the relationship with self is the most important one, because that's what manifests in our relationship with other. And most of us are focused on the other and not focused on self, which is, one of the reasons why I say, self-care isn't selfish, it's sacred,
Hmm.
right? And it's not just about taking a bath, right? It's about, although that sounds lovely. Um,
Little bubbles and some champagne.
but
Yes.
yeah, but truly, right? Truly loving you, all the parts of you,
Hmm.
being in acceptance of all the parts of you, releasing the trauma, releasing what's not yours, and then allowing the good stuff to come in, stepping into that version of you, that powerful version of you that feels as though they can achieve everything they want, and it's staying in that higher vibration to your point, where you're like, some people just vibrate down here. Well, Dr. David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force, where you actually measure emotion.
Hmm.
Okay. And that everything vibrates at hertz, which is the way you measure frequency. And it's really interesting. Love vibrates at about 500. And then, fear is way down here at around, I don't know, 100. I have my chart next to me. I could look it up. But what vibrates below fear are things like guilt and shame
Hmm.
and perfectionism. Do you want to talk about getting yourself down the scale in the quickest way? I mean, it's crazy because so many of us hold that as like the ideal,
Right.
you
Well, and
know?
there's so much of our culture that's driven around being
Yeah.
the perfect body and the perfect face and the perfect name it. Like it's almost as if even if you want to stay very centered and intuitive and in your space, you're still bombarded with all these messages of change and
Oh, yeah.
oh, ugh, it's gross.
Yeah. So, my advice is one of my favorite meditations to do, you can do in an instant. And it can really change your vibration. And so I tell people just close their eyes for a moment. Now, if you're driving, don't do that, but
Yeah,
close
definitely.
your eyes for a
Hold.
moment, as long as you're in a safe spot. And I just want you to think about someone, something, or someplace that you absolutely love. Maybe you want to think of someone and something and that someplace all together that you absolutely love.
Hmm.
And notice how quickly your vibration changes,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
I have chills. That's
Yeah.
instantaneous, right? And so that's bringing your energy up to that level. Another one of my favorite hacks to like get in a good space is to laugh. And we've been doing a lot of that during the shows,
I
thank
like to
goodness.
laugh.
Right? Okay, joy gets you up there, you know?
Right.
So be around people that make you laugh and bring you joy. Like
Hmm.
literally, you shoot to the top of the scale. And so it's just, I think, about being more conscious about who's in your environment, who you allow into your space, um, and dealing with the stuff that brought you here so that you can continue to grow. I mean, that's really, to me, what this place is all about,
Hmm.
our growth.
It's a fun journey for sure. I wanted to touch base. I have a lot of friends and a lot of colleagues that are within the corporate space, right? A lot of
Hmm.
corporate coaches, a lot of people who are running businesses. A lot of times there's a self-defeating prophecy where
Mm,
they get to a point and they can't go any higher. There's a
mm.
block, there's an issue, there's a problem. I imagine you do a lot to help coaches or help coach business owners and solopreneurs and the like to get past that self-defeating uh I guess block is the only word I know to use, but to get past those points to move forward. How do you go about doing that with them, and how do you typically see them come to you?
Well, I would say, I would say I hit the proverbial glass ceiling a number of times in my career, so I can
Smack my head on it a
appreciate
few
where they're
times.
coming from. Yeah, I got the bruises to prove it. But some of the time, it has more to do with how we see ourselves.
Mm,
Some things that happen to people. I actually was working with a CEO, and it was like, I don't know if I can really be the CEO. Like, like this whole thing of imposter syndrome being a very real
mhm,
experience for someone. And it turned out we did the work together. I, did a couple sessions with her. And it turns out why she was experiencing that, like it was a critical time in the company's history to where she was afraid to go into this board meeting. What are they going to think? Am I really the right leader? And like there was a lot of angst, right?
mhm,
So I did a session, and then what I what I found out or what I realized was the reason why she wasn't sure that she was this powerful leader was because her husband had left her for a younger man. And so she deep down inside was super insecure. And it had nothing to do with her ability to be this incredible corporate badass,
mhm. Right.
but those aspects of self influence the other.
Mhm,
So once we did the work and we cleared it, she slayed her board meeting. She's running this rockin' cool company that's in an impact, area for
mhm.
us in the world and just is flourishing. And she got herself sexy man.
Oh, good for
He is a
her.
younger man too. Go girl. Stella got her group back. But it's all of those things, right? It
Uh-huh.
depends on that person's individual situation, what's going on. Sometimes we've got our own internal calculator of how much we think we can hold energetically.
Hmm.
So we almost hit the same revenue ceiling, right? Because
Hmm.
we don't feel like we're capable of holding more or doing more. Up here we think, but our
Hmm.
body is not in agreement. Like our subconscious is not in agreement. So it's getting underneath that and finding out why, you know?
Hmm.
What are those blocks? Is it because my mom told me I would never, you know, move past a certain point or I would never amount to anything and my manifest
You'll be
destiny,
a secretary and you'll like it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like each person's going to be individual,
Hmm.
but when I talk about it collectively, we can look at what are those things going on, because I can also, where two or more are gathered, we've heard, right? The power of
Hmm.
prayer amplifies. Well, I can also clear not just an individual, but I could clear a couple, a family, a group, a team, a company, a region, right? A division, because they all have collective things, right? And patterns that are holding them back. So
Hmm.
it could be I've got somebody that's leading a division and her division, isn't moving past the revenue point. And so let's look at what's going on with the division, what's going on in the company. What are the
Hmm.
people around her doing that are not doing? Is her message resonating or not resonating? Is it about her at all?
Hmm.
Right? So I'm giving you like different scenarios because it
Right.
truly is, individualized.
Well, and I think it's great too because you're also kind of indirectly addressing the right people in the right seats. Do we have the right people in the right seats to work with the right group? Is there the right vibe? Is that vibe creating the right thing? I think, when you get into business, you start looking at, again, the numbers. You look at, okay, you've got this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. Sometimes there's so much mathematically placed into your annual plan that you forget sometimes to take the moment for the creativity and the vision and the inspiration and the connection to really get there. Don't tell my
That-
boss I just said that.
No, but that's fabulous. But it's true, right?
Right.
I think we get caught up, right? We started to talk about that. We're all up here, and I
Hmm.
think we forget we forget what, all in the head and not in the heart, and we forget
Right.
what's there, and like
Hmm.
how powerful of a compliment that can actually be for
Hmm.
somebody.
Right.
I do think that's a big part of it too. I was just going to put my glasses on because something you said sparked something for me too. Kind of bridging um, the work world and the spiritual world, right?
Hmm.
It's sort of like I had this magician energy of like the corporate world, and now I've got the healer energy in the spiritual realm. You know, I always figured out like what are these um, underlying root causes of what was going wrong in the business, right? It's like, the pathology to the process. I
Hmm.
used to heal broken systems, and now I heal broken souls.
Hmm.
I mean, that's really kind of the bridge, and um, the bioenergetics is a way for me to explain the science on why it's able to shift and how somebody can actually um, make the shift and how it amplifies in their life. I can't tell you how many executives I worked with, and
Hmm.
they weren't really having a problem at work. They were having a problem at home.
I believe that too. I mean, honestly, because I
Yeah.
mean, you think about it, you've got like a work ecosystem, but you've got
Yep.
a family ecosystem, you've got a community ecosystem. They're all interconnected as far as I'm concerned. So you could have, I don't know, I feel like even, it could
Like your
be,
life's your life.
yeah, your life is your
That's your
life and it's your
life.
story, right? So
hmm
it doesn't matter, where you think you are or who you think you are. You're still kind of living out this experience that
Yep.
you personally created from the beginning, right? Maybe a little
hmm
help from mom and dad, but like you've
Yep.
been doing the creating part for the last, however many decades. So you
Right.
get to a point where, yeah, they're all connected because there is no work-life balance. It's just the things that we do and the places that we are and the people that we're with.
Yeah.
They're all entwined in the same kind of soup, if you will.
Well, in addition to
Not
doing
very
the soul
glamorous.
intelligence method, right, I still serve as the chief growth officer for this nutraceutical company I just
Hmm.
mentioned to you. And the CEO has a great expression. He said, "We're going to call it work-life integration because it's really not
Yes.
a balance, right?"
Right.
Like, yeah, like how do you integrate the different parts of your life so that it
Yeah.
flows better, you know?
I don't know what
And that's
marketing team came up with that idea, but it's
But also, it's how we go about doing it, right? I get to be all of me in that company. I don't have to
Mhm.
hide that I've got this incredible gift and that I'm able to use that. So our employees are able to come to me to get a soul intelligence session to help them move forward when they're stuck,
Mhm.
right? If I've got a salesperson that's all of a sudden in a slump, I'm like, all right, well, let's check it out. Let's see what's showing up. What could
Mhm.
we shift? Sometimes I'm dealing with people, they're not feeling great, something's going on, and a lot of times it's stuff from home. And so
Mhm.
I'm able to go in and use a soul intelligence session to help them shift that out. In addition, to being able to help them from a strategic perspective, whether it's a growth operations for sales or marketing or international line of business or negotiating an agreement. I still do all of those things
Mhm.
besides being this spiritual person that happens to operate in this business.
I'm really
So,
glad you said that because I see again with some of my friends who are business coaches and people who are working with different teams, um, I see that a lot of more women, or at least maybe it's me talking to more women who are integrating more spirituality and more of this self-awareness into the business world.
mhm.
And I'm sure men are doing it too, but are you getting a sense that it's really there, it feels like there's something bubbling, something brewing and growing to get that momentum where it's seeming to come more into mainstream than it has ever.
Well, I think this gets us back to our astrological conversation where we first started. Great job going full
I do
circle.
what I do.
So what's going on is we've moved from the age of Capricorn to the age of Aquarius.
Hmm.
So what does that really mean? Okay. So the Capricorn age was really hierarchical,
Hmm.
okay, very top down, very male oriented, okay, in general, that kind
Hmm.
of way of
Male
doing
energy
business.
oriented.
Traditional, yes,
Hmm.
traditional, more what I would call Mars energy, male
Right.
energy. What Aquarius is, this time that we've entered and that we're really starting to move into, is if you think of like if you know anything about any of the astrological signs, Aquarius is about the individual,
Hmm.
okay? Recognizing the individual's strengths, their worth, their um, the way and the gifts they bring into the world, into the company. And it's also about moving together as one. So maintaining the individuality while moving towards the common goal together.
Hmm.
And so it's more of a collaborative environment. There's more, um, decisions that are being made through consensus as opposed to like kind of the group think that we heard about, that
Hmm.
the millennials and the Z's we're all, we can't go to the prom with one person. We need a group, that kind of
Right.
stuff. But so it's kind of manifested right into business now to where it's
Hmm.
not top down, but we're moving our organizations to become more flat, right?
Hmm.
To make it more that we're all sitting around the table coming up with a solution together because we know we have all these great minds and then we're going to come up with something better collectively than we would individually. So
Hmm.
I think it's even the way what's coming about now is the way we used to do business isn't working as well anymore. We used to be able to hustle and push and grind and make it happen, right? That's
Hmm.
the world I grew up in. Um, and now we're learning more about if you shift your vibration to that which you want, you can magnetize and bring in. So where it might have been more about the hard driving, sales activities, now it's more about magnetizing the right people to you so that you can bring them the solutions they really need. It's
Hmm.
almost like a marketing paradigm,
Hmm.
right?
No, I'm going to steal
Attracting.
that for my next sales meeting. Hmm.
So
No, I mean, I
attracting the
think
right
it's great.
person.
I think it's true
But
though, because
true, right?
it's
Yeah.
less, it's because I think,
Which
a
is
lot of,
more feminine, right? It's the
yes,
creative container, right?
yes.
Masculine energy is the container, and the feminine energy is this swirling creative energy. So the feminine needs to feel safe in order to create, and that's where they blend. So it's like the flip-flopping. It's really divine masculine feminine imbalance is what it is.
Hmm. Yeah, they're both needed. They're both sides of that equation are
Absolutely.
needed. but they're just needed in different energy, like balanced
Absolutely.
energy.
Absolutely. You
Awesome.
got it.
I like it. I like it. So what's next for you? I know you've got the movie coming out, and
Yeah.
what else do you have going on?
Oh my goodness. I've got a book tour in New York City coming up in October,
Hmm.
October 9th to the 11th. It's called the Soul in the City Tour, which I think is super cool.
Very
Given my
marketing.
Carrie Bradshaw curls
Yeah,
here.
I love it.
Little throwback.
Send you some high
Uh,
heels.
Thanks so much. I know. Can you imagine walking the city in minute, Blahniks? No way. Anyway, but so that's coming up. I'm also in the process of writing a companion book to the first book,
Okay.
Healing Through Soul Intelligence. It's going to be a daily dose of soul intelligence,
Okay.
where there'll be something every day for 365 days. I'm going to be putting that out later this fall.
Hmm.
You'll get, a daily quote, a daily soul intelligence message, a journal prompt, and an inspired action to kind of go take a little bit of soul intelligence with you every single day.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
And then how do people find you if they want to consult with you or if they want to just learn more about you?
The best place is probably just hit the website if you want to get on my mailing list, you want to learn more about me. I should probably mention, the first Wednesday of every month, I offer online a free group soul intelligence session. So if you want to experience this, I typically do it around a theme.
Hmm.
So like, May was Mother's Day, June was Father's Day. I always have a theme that's going on. So this is more about the next one, I think, is more about you and independence and individuality and all of that good stuff that comes
Spicy.
around in July, right?
Hmm.
But if they're interested in learning more about that, again, going to my website and signing up for my email list, you'll be able to get the Zoom information.
Uh-huh.
But it's soulintelligencemethod.com.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes too. But I'm glad that you
Wonderful.
brought up the group thing because I was looking at that
Come,
and I was
baby.
I was curious. How does that
Yeah.
play out? Like what can people expect if they do sign up? What is the kind of what's the flow of it?
Okay, so it's just a Zoom, right? A group
Okay.
Zoom. And the best part about my method is all you have to do is show up, all right, and receive. That's
I love
it.
it. Thank
I know. Talk about compliance, right? Doctors love it too. They're like, they only have to show up for, I'm like, yes. So I pick a theme because when you're working with a group, right,
you. Hmm.
typically you're looking for those underlying themes. It's kind of the same thing as a corporate turnaround specialist. I'm looking for those. Is it people, process,
No,
technology?
you've
What's
just
the
changed
theme?
titles. That's all you've changed.
It's pretty much it. And so I'll pick a theme and then it's relevant for everybody that's in that group, whether they watch
Okay.
it live or later, right? Because
Okay.
our 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 soul doesn't know time, our subconscious mind doesn't know time. So
Hmm.
you'll get benefit. And literally that's all you do. I ask that you're in a comfortable space so you feel good. When I usually explain what I'm going to do so people have an understanding of the experience. And then I ask that I typically have people just turn their cameras off so they can just receive. And then I always send the replay out because I want you to just experience. And it gives you just a little bit of time to kind of go within and not
Hmm.
really think about what's going on. And then most people tend to tell me it's kind of like, an energetic massage. And
Love
when I'm
that.
trying to describe it to people, I'm like, look, you go to a chiropractor for a biomechanical adjustment. You
Hmm.
come to me for a bioenergetic adjustment. They work well together.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much what I'm doing in that session.
Nice, nice. I love that. I actually might join you on one of these in the next few because I saw that and I was like, "Ooh, that sounds
Yay.
fun."
Super cool. Yeah, sign up anytime. I would love to have you.
Awesome, awesome. Kristine, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for everything and for all of your information. I'm gonna go out and get the book. Probably gonna check out the movies too, and then maybe I'll see
Yay.
you in the next session.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.